Hi everyone. We didn't have any volunteers, so I'm going to do also this part of this. In our presentation, in our workshop, we talk about the relevance of big data and how that has helped the Albanian SAI to audit the state budget. We had in the past pervasive problems with expenditure arrears, breaches of the deficit, and high debt levels. That requires consistent monitoring and improvement of public finance management and reporting. We used to identify all this, to come up with this reporting. We identified areas how we can use big data from the government, especially from a financial reporting system of the government, to identify where these breaches are, which are the key risky areas, and to come up at the end with a number of what the deficit is and what the public debt, which in the past 2 years we have disagreed with the government due to the discovery of new unrecorded liabilities from using big data. Without the use of big data and analyzing such data, the amount of work would have been impossible to determine, and the change of findings we had from the moment we moved to this approach has been substantive in our case. We discussed also cases about how we're using big data to analyze and identify fraudulent activities, for example, in the drug reimbursement sector or in other areas like procurement. In conclusion, we said that big data are actually helping us and are going to change the way we audit and improve the efficiency of how we do it. However, it requires extensive training and capability increases from the side of the SAIs, and also requires that we to rely on this big data, to have appropriate IT audits on these IT systems in order to make sure that data integrity is crucial and is accurate for us to continue and develop and create value for the information we provide.
Well, this time I didn't manage to get any free drinks out of it. So, but Giulio, if I pull this off, then I expect a very good glass of red Italian wine this evening. Giulio took us on a long voyage back to the origins of courts of audit, and I'm going to try to keep this really nice and short, which is very difficult. But he told us about how in the early days, so before the Middle Ages even, the role of courts of audit was to control the finances of the sovereign. But of course, the character of states changed more or less in Europe towards more or less representative democracies, with parliamentary sovereignty and with parliamentary sovereignty as budgetary sovereigns. So with that, also our role as auditors and impartial spectators of government spendings also changed, and we ended up discussing our role and the part of jurisdiction within as a specific aspect of the task or of courts of audits, because now we also have the tasks of accounting judgment and administrative liability, judgment of equalization, and also for some of us the power to impose sanctions. And before maybe there's any questions from the room, I would like to ask a question at you. So who of the people here or the courts of audit present here actually have the possibility to prosecute or to sanction auditees? So, and you are from Spain, Portugal as well, Italy, of course, and in the back. All right. Yeah. Okay. So that's not very many. Excuse me for. But the question I wanted to ask you is how many of you would like the ability or the capability to actually prosecute after an investigation? It's 2, 3, 4. Okay. Not so many. Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not from Hungary, these ladies are, but I'm from Estonia. My name is Henry, and because I had many questions about the topic, then I was like forced to give my personal feedback. Bluntly said, it was very good overview of the system, how the Hungarian SAO develops and trains the auditors when they come to the organization. My personal view is that very comprehensive, very detailed, the programs, but compared to, I know, the other ones who were around the table, it was much more than we in Estonia or in UK are used to, because it's the trainee program is, I think it was 5 years. You are a trainee, but my personal like background is that I have not been. I have been auditor for 5 years and no trainee program, but already we had this like saying in Estonia, it's like you drown or you swim. Then, no trainee program. Yes. It's like, are you capable of doing audits or not? It's not that detailed. But yeah, if you have some questions about the program itself, then as Hungarians, they can explain it. But my view is that it would be very useful for the other national audit offices to have something in place for young auditors, because some things you can learn by like if you are in a university as an I don't know, social science or economy like studies, but certain things are very audit specific, the methodology, or so you should have some programs.
Great, thank you. Hello, I'm Kerry from Scotland, and so we were learning a bit about the project in Norway. So it's called the 1402 project, and so this is looking at building automatic controls into financial audit, and this is based on international standards for Supreme Audit Institutions 1402 and then ISA 402. So we were looking a bit about the advantages and disadvantages of this, and the advantages we thought were better quality of output, time that could be used on other things rather than putting data into the system is used elsewhere, and also it means that statistics are that they're more consistent over time. We also looked at whether or not the rise of automatic controls would reduce employment, but then we decided as a group that it wouldn't actually lead to unemployment, but it would actually push the jobs into other areas and change the focus. So for this project, they've taken people from the IT department to create it along with people from other sections from out the audit agency in Norway. So it's kind of putting the people into employment in different areas. But we also thought the disadvantages were that if you put bad data into the system, then you'll get bad outputs also. So you kind of spend more time looking at the data that's going into the system than is coming out. So, if there's any questions.
So, I'm another lucky guy that had a presentation before a coffee break, so there was no volunteer to sum it up. So basically, working at the European Court of Auditors, and I started the workshop with a small presentation of actually what the Court of Auditors is doing in terms of reporting on environmental measures. And I started with Sustainable Development Goals because that's the area that we highlighted as being very important to the European citizens. We've noticed that although all the member states in the European Union committed themselves to fulfill and to reach the common goals until 2030, there is no one strategy on the European level, and actually the European Commission is not coordinating the activities of the member states. From 2017-2018, Sustainable Development Goals are an obligatory element of the programming process at the Court of Auditors. So as we create our annual working program, we select the audit tasks and check if they tell us something about the Sustainable Development Goals, or we could change the scope of the project a bit so that they will give us some information on that. And we conduct our performance audits, trying to answer three questions, three dimensions in terms of sustainability. We assess the EU reporting process. We check if the member states report the data, for example, on the greenhouse gases emissions in a proper way, so that the way they reach the goals is reliable. We assess if the policy objectives of the EU, of the member states, if they are aligned with the SDGs, and if we can say that they are reached or they will be reached. And we alert about the risks where actually the actions of the Commission or the member states will not lead to the reach of any of the SDGs. The other thing we are now trying to do, or we are testing, is the environmental aspect of the transactions we are auditing. So I've given an example of the area I'm working on. So it's agriculture, and in the performance aspects of more than 200 transactions that we audit every year from the agriculture, we are now trying not only to say if the money has been spent the rules of economy or efficiency, but we are also trying to answer the question if the money spent actually contributed positively or negatively to environmental, or in more detail to the climate actions. As we know, agriculture is being blamed as a huge contributor to greenhouse gases emissions, and we just wanted to check if we can actually say something reliable on that topic. Yeah, so questions.
Okay, in this workshop we talked more from, let's say, the research point of view about the media communication game, but what I really liked in the presentation was that functions of the media and SIEs are actually aligned. Like functions of journalists are to inform citizens, and SIEs have to share relevant democratic information with citizens. Journalists are like social watchdogs or like a burglar alarm, and we ring the burglar alarm when we find substantive shortcomings. And journalists have the platform for discussion, and we feed the social and political discussion with facts. Journalists explain and provide explanation and analysis of societal issues, and we help media with an accurate explanation and analysis of societal issues based on research. And journalists set the agenda, and we put the relevant issues on the agenda. So that shows that we actually really closely linked. And the other part of the of the workshop was practical, where we had a role of being a journalist and a spokesperson, and apparently it's not that easy to be a spokesperson, because in the end you have to put through the message that, let's say, that like the most important message of your report, but journalists sometimes want to have, let's say, some hot headlines, so you really have to know how to manage, you know, questions and the information. What else? And also we shared some experiences, how it is in our offices, let's say, in communicating with the journalists. And actually we agreed that communication specialists are really helpful, because they kind of, you know, help in answering these questions and actually having a direct communication with journalists. So yeah, that's it.
So I know we're all quite tired, so I will make this very brief, because there's not much to say in terms of the content, because it was very interactive, but also very fun. So we basically were tasked, we had a massive data set which was really wide, quite long, and we had to make an algorithm using little Lego blocks to try and decide which animals belong to which class. So we had mammals, amphibians, fish, and then a whole load of variables, like does it breathe, does it swim, does it have teeth, how many legs. So that was basically the task, which sounded easy, and then as we started we realised that actually it was quite difficult. So I guess main takings from what we did is I think it's really important that auditors in general need to kind of get their head round data and get quite familiar with variables and looking at data in a slightly different way. It will take a lot of time to get your head around doing it, but I think tying back in nicely to workshop 1 that I went to this morning, which was Austria, and digitalisation, again, it's quite time consuming, quite costly, but I think that is kind of the future of audit, really. So, sure. That's it.